All right. All ready, Megan?
Yep, looks good.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. So welcome to our webinar for July. This month we have a guest, Megan Cronin, here talking about InDesign tips, tricks, and best practices. And no, these are not expert level. Some of them are reminders, but you will be more of an expert after leaving today. Yeah. Okay, so welcome. Thank you. If you are just joining in the chat, we're putting our name where we're at and something fun you did this summer so we can connect with other folks in the industry. Expectations for today: be active, participate. If you want to put your video on, Meg and I would love it, so we aren't just talking to ourselves and to each other. No stupid questions, especially when we talk technology, all at differing levels when it comes to InDesign and Adobe products. So yeah, no stupid questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat. If you do want to come off mute, raise your hand or put a note and I will do that for you as well. I will ask questions as we go if it's relevant for Megan. Otherwise, we'll wait till the end and you can come off chat or I can ask those for you. And then the goal is you will have the recording by tomorrow for sure. My goal is to get it out today, but we'll see if that works or not. Okay, and then we already talked about the chat. Okay. So I am your host, Angie Wolf. For those that don't know me or just connected because of this event, a little bit about me and my firm. So I am the owner of Ideas at Dawn. We bring large civil and engineering and construction firms a competitive advantage with their proposals to win more work without adding on more payroll. This includes turnkey proposal management to also training. As well. And then today we have, oh, I forgot to finish editing this. Miss Megan Cronin here. She's currently down in New Mexico, brings 15 years of marketing, graphic design, branding, and advertising experience. She's currently director of marketing at RS21, a data science company, but she used to be in the AEC, which is why she is here today. She oversees strategy and management of marketing communication activities for RS21. And today, what we're going to talk about is a little bit about everything related to Adobe. So she's going to do talk a little bit about Illustrator, Photoshop, but really our focus is some best practices, tips and tricks with InDesign. So whether we're talking print, digital format, or even some long form documents like proposals. So I think, and be sure to stay to the end. I do have something special to offer you all that are on the call today. Otherwise, Megan, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, so I will stop sharing.
All right.
And then you can take it over.
All right. And let me just push this full screen. Can I get just a quick check that you can see this cover slide and hear me okay?
Yes, yeah. You are all good.
Great. All right, let's get started. So as Andy mentioned, my name is Megan Cronin. I'm the director of marketing for RS21. We're a data science, data viz, and software development company. But prior to this, I was in AEC. I was the director of marketing for 8 years for an architecture firm. So while I am no longer in AEC, the content that I'm going to present today is really industry agnostic. So it really applies to all marketers working on proposals, collateral materials, graphic design. I saw someone in the chat who's switching careers. So this is applicable to you as well. So you're in the right place. Just a quick overview of the agenda. Like Angie mentioned, quick high-level overview of Adobe Creative Cloud. And we're going to talk about some InDesign best practices, so do's and don'ts, then go into InDesign tips and tricks, and then close with some design resources. So as we all know, Adobe Creative Cloud has a ton of different apps. And I think for the most part, most marketers, the ones that we're most familiar with are Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. And before we dive into InDesign, I think it's really important to put InDesign into context with these other two and talk about when it's most appropriate to use each. So starting with Photoshop, when we want to be using Photoshop, we're using it for editing photos or images, making really simple web graphics, something like a banner ad that's never needs to be scaled up. You can use it to create simple video or animated GIFs. Photoshop is great for doing mockups. There's a lot of great templates out there to use here. But the important thing to remember is that you're going to be producing raster graphics, which are made up of pixels. So that will sometimes result in those jagged edges. If something is scaled up, it might become pixelated. And because of that, we don't want to be using Photoshop for designing logos or branding materials, because those will need to be scaled to a lot of different applications. You don't want to be drawing or illustrating because you won't be getting those vector results. It is not great for laying out lots of text. To my knowledge, I don't think it even has spell check. So that's a big no-no there. And you really don't want to be doing anything with multi-page layout. So no multi-page documents, proposal, brochures, or newsletters. Definitely want to stay away from Photoshop. So the next biggie is Illustrator. And we want to be using Illustrator anytime we're working with vector artwork. So illustration, branding marks, logo designs, icons. And then just also to clarify, if you're not familiar with vector, it means it can be scaled to any size without losing resolution. So that's why it's most appropriate for things like logos, illustrations, diagrams, anything that needs to be scaled up. You can create single page documents inside of Illustrator without getting into too much trouble, but anything beyond that, you're going to want to go to InDesign. So don't want to use it for multi-page designs. It doesn't have the same kind of automation control like you do in InDesign. So so can't automate page numbers. You can't create master pages. And so just definitely want to stay away from it if you're using a lot of text. And so finally, InDesign. So those are all kind of the do's and don'ts. When should we use InDesign? So we want to be using InDesign. It kind of has the best of both worlds when we're using both text and graphics in our layouts. So multi-page layouts, long format designs. It can support really long text-heavy layouts. So proposals, magazines, newspapers, books, brochures, newsletters, booklets, flyers. So really bottom line, if you're going to be using a lot of text, you want to be using InDesign. Okay. So going to dive into some best practices. Like Angie mentioned, while some of these things might seem somewhat basic, I think it's important to recognize that in order to become an expert in anything, you really want to rely on your best practices to set the foundation, to make sure you're putting out quality, error-free materials that either reflect well on your company or yourself. So just always great to rely on best practices. And even if you are an expert, just a nice reminder and refresher. All right, so I like to call all these do's. These are just things that are going to make your life easier. So why not, right? So the first one is using page masters. And so your page masters live inside of your pages panel. You can create multiple page masters, depending if you have different sections, if you have both vertical and horizontal layouts, that can accommodate as well. So really the possibilities are endless just based on whatever you need for your document. So some of the things that you can do inside your page masters are creating structures. So I've created a 2-column layout that can accommodate the text that I'm going to put into my document. I can also set up a grid, a background grid that can help guide where I'm putting graphics and ensure that I'm placing them consistently in the same pages. But the big thing that most people use page masters for, and really the main value, is you can add your repeating elements. Without page masters, you'd have to add these types of elements manually on every single page, which would be very time consuming and very difficult to manage. So by putting them on the master, it automatically updates it onto your every page that you have it applied. So your headers, your footers, and your page numbers. So by using page masters, we can ensure that we're creating consistency in our document, right? So these things are appearing in the same place on every single page. and you're not having to manually manage that content. So that creates efficiency. You can work a lot more quickly. So these are going to be kind of two main themes you're going to see throughout this presentation, are both consistency and efficiency. So the next big do is using paragraph styles. And paragraph styles are just really a set of characteristics for formatting a certain piece of text. You can create a lot of different ones depending on the type of text. And then when you apply it to the text, it will apply those formatting characteristics. So here's, a list of my body text, my title, subtitle, captions, etc. And you can expand on any individual paragraph style. These are just the basic characteristics of this style, but there's a lot of different formatting options off to the left that you can use to really customize your paragraph styles. So in this example, I have a cover page and just a single page layout. These are all individual paragraph styles. So if I apply them anywhere else in my document, it's going to apply the exact same formatting that I've assigned and applied in these different spaces. And just to show you what this looks like in action, let's see if this plays, just to show you how kind of quickly and impactful paragraph styles can be. I just have some basic body copy on my screen, and I'm going to go through and quickly apply my paragraph styles, and you'll see how quickly it will format the text in a really uniform way. And when you're applying your paragraph styles, you only need your cursor to be in the text. It doesn't have to be highlighted. And once it's in the text and you click on your paragraph style, it will apply the characteristics from that paragraph style to wherever you've placed your cursor. So just really quick and easy, no reason not to do this. It allows you to have really consistent formatting throughout your document. So that is that. And there we go. Now my text is formatting, and it took literal seconds. So again, helps create consistency. You're formatting in the exact same way throughout your document, super quick and fast. So you're working really efficiently. It also allows you to make sweeping changes. So for example, say all your headers were blue and you learned that your client hates blue. All you have to do is go in and change the color of that paragraph style to a different color, and everywhere you've applied that paragraph style, it will update. If you were manually formatting, you'd have to go to every instance where you had that blue header and update it manually, which would be time consuming. And it's also likely you might miss something. So it's just really easy and efficient to use those. The next do is using spell check. So I'm a big proponent and advocate of spell check. I built this presentation in spell check and quickly ran a spell check. And of course, it caught something on my spell check slide, amazingly. And it just kind of highlights that we're all working so fast and quickly, and sometimes we're too close to our content to even maybe see certain errors. So there's really no reason not to run a spell check on your documents. It's super easy. I would encourage you all to get in the habit of running spell check quite often. Anytime you're about to export a PDF or print something, get in the habit of running your spell check. Even if you think I've run it a million times, usually those last minute edits that we sneak in there is when we're likely editing errors back into our documents. So just always make sure you're running spell check. And you can do this by either Control or Command I, depending if you're on a PC or Mac. So run spell check and run it often.
If I can ask a question here real quick. So in InDesign, it doesn't have real-time spell checking.
Like where it gives a little squiggly underline.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like blanking right now. I don't think so, but
It does.
I think you can enable it depending on your settings. It's a preference.
Okay.
So yeah, and I think someone just chimed in that you can.
Yeah, it does. It has that setting where you just turn it on and it automatically shows you those.
It's
Great,
dynamic spelling, Carmine.
Right. So if you go into your preferences panel, it lives there to turn that on and off. I probably have mine off. Thank you. All right.
The other thing, Megan, before you move on, someone asked a question. Brooke, on how to set up paragraph styles. Do you want to talk about that now or later?
I can talk about that now. it's a little hard to explain without actually showing it.
Yeah.
But essentially, let me go back real quick. So in this panel, you'll see here at the top, every document starts with basic paragraph, and that's just your default text. So when you start typing in, it's probably like Times New Roman. So once you've changed the formatting, so you say you're creating your body copy and you change it to Arial, and Arial 10-point font, and that's what I want to use for my body copy. What you can do is come down to this little plus sign right here, click that. What that will do is it will create a new style based on whatever formatting you currently have applied, and you can title it and you can call that body copy. And it will now, it will create a paragraph style with those formatting characteristics, and you'll see it in the list in your paragraph style panel. And you can kind of continue and create them just like that. Then you can create a title. And then once you have that title highlighted, click the little plus sign in the bottom of this panel, and it'll create the new style, and you can title appropriately. So yeah, you can build up a lot of different ones, but that's essentially how you create them. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Great. All right, let me go back through here. All right. Good to dive into our no-nos.
One last question, Megan, do you know the shortcut for dynamic spelling?
I don't. It's going to be.
Is there a shortcut, or is it just a setting?
It's going to be
Okay.
up in your preferences panel. And
Okay.
without pulling, I can't open my InDesign right now but I'm sure someone on the call could maybe help point that person in the right direction, or certainly when we get off this presentation, we can look. But yeah,
Perfect.
all those great types of settings are in your preferences panel. There's a million different things you can define inside of there.
Okay. Thank
All
you,
right.
Wendy.
All right, so those are some of our do's, things we should be doing. Wanted to also talk about kind of things we shouldn't be doing when using InDesign. And these are really all framed around not ignoring the great warnings that InDesign gives us. They're warning us for a reason, and we need to listen to InDesign. So I'm gonna open up the chat. Can anyone tell me what this is indicating, what this is trying to tell us, this red plus on the screen?
You have overset text.
Correct. Thank you, Brooke. And yeah, Claire, text overflow. Yes, exactly. Overflow or what's called overset text. Whoops. This is what happens when I try to open chat. Okay. So yeah, overset text. We don't want to ignore overset text. And what that means is there is more text inside of the text frame that can be displayed because the text frame is too small to accommodate it. So that little plus sign in the bottom right corner is indicating there's more text that can't be displayed. And I can, and we'll go through when we talk about flowing text through columns, how to remedy that. The great thing is if you go to export or print, InDesign's going to alert you to where the problem is. So you can go and fix that. So it tells me it's on page 1. I can navigate to page 1 and actually just open up this text frame, just make it larger until you can see that it is displaying all the text that you have. It's important to do this not only because, you might be missing some information. It's an incomplete thought. You're not communicating your full message, but in the proposal space, you might also run the risk of being non-compliant if it's cutting something off that's a mandatory requirement. So just really important. Don't ignore those overset text warnings. All right, next one. Can anyone tell me why this text is highlighted in pink? Yes, it's
Yeah,
font.
because
The
the
font
font is
The
not
font's
missing.
not
Yes.
available. Yeah.
Great, everyone knows this. Some people think it just is like a nice formatting for free that InDesign does for you with this pink highlight, but no, it's not good, even though it might look nice. Yeah, you're missing fonts. It used to be just you didn't have the font installed. Now it's you're not synced to Adobe fonts. Your fonts aren't activated. Just want to talk about the importance of fonts. Some people might say, well, Adobe substitutes this default font for me and there's words on the screen, like what's the big deal? And so, yeah, if someone's not familiar with, your brand standards, they might not notice. Your marketing people will, but they might not. However, sometimes our text frames, like we just saw with the overset text example, when the default font is activated, the text frame for your other font might not be large enough or the same size to accommodate the new font text. So on the left side, this is what my layout looks like with my correct fonts. And on the right side is what it looks like when I've deactivated my font. So the word hello doesn't fit inside the box in the new font. So it just doesn't appear at all. So now I'm missing my header entirely. Same thing with this first column. I'm missing the text. So just want to highlight that it's not really just about aesthetics, even though that is important. It's also, it could really cut off some of your content. So how we can remedy this, a couple different ways. You can activate your Adobe fonts. So it'll bring up this warning and you can just click activate and you're good to go. Sometimes it's not a one-to-one activations, especially as font families change, it might not fully remedy. So you can also go into your find replace font panel, which you go up into type and find font. And here you can instruct InDesign what font you want to replace it with, or say you want to just change fonts. This is another way to do that. You can also activate in this panel as well. And then a new feature that InDesign just rolled out is you can enable auto activate. So this is going to be in your preferences panel, looks like under file handling, where if you open a InDesign document where you don't have the font activated, someone else's layout maybe, it'll auto activate that for you. So you don't even need to bother with manual activation. I would say the fourth option that's not on the screen is installing a font locally is another way, but I think that's less common these days, but it still certainly could exist. So, all right. Can anyone tell me what this is trying to tell us? It's a little exaggerated, but anyone know what kind of a blurry image might indicate? Low res, sure, that's fair.
That you're missing the link to the original file.
That is correct. Yeah, we have a broken link, and that's a problem. So this is another thing that Adobe will alert us to. And there's a couple ways you can kind of inform yourself around where you have broken links and how to fix them. So inside of our links panel, it will kind of give a rundown for the full document of where you have both broken links, meaning an image that was previously linked has moved locations or is deleted entirely. And that's the red little stop sign guy here, or the yellow warning. That's just that an image has been modified. So you need to refresh the link to bring in that new information. So to remedy a broken link, you can click on the item, click this link icon, and it'll open up, your computer dialog box, and you can navigate to where that file lives. However, sometimes because it's broken, you might not know where it lives. That's might be part of the reason why it's broken. So a nice thing you can do down here where it says path, if you hover over this, it'll tell you where the path to where that file either actually used to live, because it's not there anymore. So at least it can point you in the right direction when you go looking for it, because maybe you've switched servers, or maybe it moved into a different folder, but at least gets you started on the right path. Just some best practices around links. We don't want to be linking locally. Unless you're a team of one, where you're the only person in your documents, you should be linking out in one centralized place that all your teammates can access those links. I also think I'm an advocate of not packaging files after every conclusion. That way, if you do that, you're going to have that same asset living in 500 different places on your server, which can really eat up bandwidth. So yeah, unless you have to, just keep it in one centralized location that everyone can access, like on SharePoint or whatever kind of server structure you have set up. Another good best practice is don't embed your graphics. I know it can be really quick and easy sometimes, especially when you're moving really fast, trying to get something out the door, but you can run into problems later. I've seen a lot of instances where embedding graphics will cause your file to error. So if you ever get that, you're trying to export a PDF and it fails, embedded graphics can cause that, or it can corrupt your file, which will likely happen right before you have to get your proposal out the door. So just good to avoid altogether, to make sure you have like a nice clean file that won't error out. And also to ensure that you have the most up-to-date information. If your teammate is working on some layout that you have linked, if they modify it, you just simply refresh it. But if you've embedded that, you won't be pulling in or even be alerted that that has changed. So just ensuring you have the most current up-to-date information. Another new thing that InDesign just rolled out to help alert you to where you have broken or modified links is it's going to display these little warning icons in line on your actual layout pages. So the links panel will give you an overview of the entire document, but now on each page, it will show you these error icons, and you just have to click on them. It'll open up the window to go find your new link, or on refresh, you just have to double click it and it'll automatically refresh it. So that's really nice.
Megan, one question. Do you know if you can link to images in the cloud?
So when I was in AEC, we had a kind of typical server structure where I was linking to our server. My server was displayed, I could access it. It wasn't on the cloud. I didn't navigate through a browser window. It was just in my, applications on my computer. It was also on a PC. When I came to RS21, everything was on OneDrive. Now we're on SharePoint, which is on the cloud, which you can't link to. And so it created major, and we have UX UI designers who work in Figma, other design programs. I'm the minority working in Adobe. So they weren't set up to accommodate that. The workaround, and I'm sure you can do this on a PC, I'm on a Mac, is you create a mirror image of your either OneDrive or SharePoint server. And it's like, it creates a local copy, but it's syncing to the cloud. It's incredibly resource intensive on your machine, but it's the only workaround that at least our IT folks were able to create or replicate. And it works. But yeah, for InDesign or anything you're doing links, you kind of need to navigate to something that appears to live locally on your machine. You navigate in that same way. But if you use a cloud server structure, you're going to have your IT folks set up that kind of mirrored local copy. So, all right. Cool. I'm going to keep going.
Yep, go ahead, Megan.
All right. So now we're going to kind of talk, those are our do's and don'ts, best practices. These are some tips and tricks. So the first one is creating a quick collage using grid frames. And we do this using our rectangle frame tool and our arrow keys. And I have a little demo video so you can see what this looks like in action. So what we want to do is we want to select our rectangle frame tool and draw it to occupy the space that we want to fill. And before we let go of the cursor, we want to use our arrow keys both up and to the right to implement both vertical and horizontal breaks. So now I have a grid. Then you can open up whatever images you want to use. I'm using just kind of abstract images for this example. You can just start dropping them into your frames. But you can use this for, project pages in a portfolio section. You can use it for a team page or setting up a grid for kind of mini resumes. There's just a lot of different uses, but just getting your basic grid set up is really helpful. So once I've dropped in all my images, you just select all those frames and go up to fill frame proportionately. And it's just created this nice simple grid for you. You're probably 90% of the way there. You can kind of make adjustments. You might change your mind and decide that you want maybe one of the images to be a hero image. So you can delete out the others and just expand the one in the corner. But again, it just kind of gets you 90% of the way there, and then you can modify it however needed. But it's kind of quick and easy way to do that.
Hey, Megan, before you leave there,
Yeah.
How did you split the rectangle into the grid?
Sorry, yeah, that was quick. So I'll just let it play again. You use your arrow keys. So once you draw your shape, before you release your mouse, use your arrow keys, and the up arrow key splits it horizontally and the right arrow key splits it vertically. If you've created too many breaks, you can use the down or the left arrow keys to reduce them. But the key here is you want to be doing your arrows up, down, left, right, while still holding down the rectangle shape. Once you release your mouse, you can no longer make those breaks. Does that make
And then-
sense?
Yeah, we'll see if Lisa responds. And then Jamie asked, can you change the grid frames to other shapes besides squares or rectangles? Does anybody know? Do you know, Megan?
I've never tried it. I think it could be interesting on like a circle. I think I'm not sure if it has to have right angles to do this, but we can all go try that. I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Or the curved corners type of thing.
Yeah. Oh, I keep forgetting this is a video. It's not my actual interface. I was about to click on that.
Yes, it sounds like you can do other shapes.
Cool. I've never had to do that. That would
Unless you're
work.
circles.
Yeah, you're because that kind of makes sense. You need like a pie grid or something like that. Cool.
Cool.
Try that. All right. All right. The next one is custom non-printing elements. So what this is if you want something on your screen that's kind of there for structure or guidance, but you don't want it to actually appear when you print it or export a PDF, you can assign non-printing, you can make it a non-printing element so it doesn't do that. So just a simple example of this, this was back when we were still submitting hard copies of proposals, but I needed to make some labels for my proposal box. So I took my label grid structure and I wanted it on the page. I wanted to be viewable, so I knew where to put my content, but I didn't want to print it. And this is just a little bit easier. I know you can put these types of structure on like a layer and turn it on and off, but sometimes you forget, and then you print lines on your labels. So just a nice way to, if you want something on the screen that's there that provides value for some reason, but you don't want to actually print, just select it, go to Window, Output Attributes, and then just assign it to be a non-printing feature. Cool, polygons work too. I'm gonna have to try this afterwards. All right, so text autoflow, this relates to when we have overset text, kind of flowing text between our text boxes. And when you're flowing text, you can either load your cursor and manually place it in each column and do that one by one. And there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you have a lot of text and that might take you a really long time. So the way we do this is before we click down into that next column, we want to hold down Shift before we click, and that's going to auto flow onto however many pages it needs. And so just to show you what this looks like in action, another little video. So the key thing here is we want to make sure we have columns defined. That way our text knows where to go and we flow it in. And then we want to make sure we also have several pages to accommodate all of that incoming text. So I'll usually just say like insert 10 pages. Even if that's too many, you can always reduce them later just to make sure we can accommodate. So I'm going to go and just copy my text, go back to InDesign, paste it in. So yeah, it's overset. We have to increase the size of the text box. And by clicking on the red plus, we load our cursor. And yeah, like I said before, you can go through one by one and click through, and sometimes that's sufficient, but I know I have a lot more text loaded in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, load my cursor, and before I click down in my next column, I want to hold down Shift. It's hard to see, but it'll give that little squiggle shape. And then while holding down Shift, I'll click down, and it's going to flow onto the remaining pages. And you can see in the Pages panel, it just flowed text onto 6 other pages automatically. So that's great. It's super time saving. Again, you have to have your column set up in order for that to happen. Otherwise, it'll just span the full width. So then once you have your text in there, start formatting with your paragraph styles. So just super quick and easy, efficient way to get your text in and start formatting. I'm gonna stop this guy. All right. So integrated PDF comments. So a lot of times you're working on.
Hey, Megan,
Yeah,
can you show that again?
yeah.
And Andrea, did you want to come off mute or do you want me to ask you a question?
Yeah, I can come off mute. My question is, I noticed that you are creating separate text boxes for each column, which is typically what I normally do, but I find that there's a lot of people in our industry that will create just one big text box and put, just add the columns in the text box itself. Do you know what I'm saying? So like the text box is the entire page, but then they just add columns in that. And why do you do it your way versus the other? Because I have this argument with people all the time and I would just love someone else's opinion.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding correctly, so they're essentially using a one column layout, but then they're splitting the text inside of that column or that text box. It's not even a column. And you can go in and you can split it inside the text frame. I would not recommend doing that. So one, you couldn't utilize kind of what's being illustrated on the screen. It's gonna just run full width. I don't even know why you would go that other way. If you're trying to achieve a 2-column layout look, you should probably using 2 columns. It seems like a logistical nightmare when you're also trying to bring in other elements like images, or because it's hard to show, but by keeping them in separate columns, you can scale that text box up or down and still maintain that width. Whereas if you change the size of your single text frame split in half, it's going to then make 2 skinny columns inside of that. Does that make sense?
Right. Well, they make it the whole width of the page and then do, or not necessarily the page, but like your actual margins. They make it the whole width of that margin and then and then do the columns from there. So it's still the same size, like when at the end of the day, it still looks exactly the same when it's finished. But I do agree with you that it is easier to manipulate when they're their own text boxes. But I was at a company at one point that basically like berated me for doing it the way that you're doing right now and was telling me that wasn't like a best practice. And so I was just curious what other people did.
Yeah, I just think these tools exist for a reason. The only time I've ever split text using that way, like inside of an individual frame, is say you have a really long list of bullets and it's taking up a lot of vertical space, which sometimes you're under page limits. So I might say, I want this bulleted list to be 2 column span, but just under this one paragraph. I don't want it to apply to everything else. Like that's where that kind of feature is valuable. Applying it almost like a character style works. It's applying it to like a small set of content or text within another frame, but not, I wouldn't recommend it to split a full text frame into 2 columns for like your whole page layout.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's a good point. Wendy just mentioned it's about personal preference. I mean, if that is, it seems more difficult to manage to me, but if that works great for you, hey.
Oh, I do it your way. I was just curious.
Yeah.
No. I do it your way.
Yeah, and I think I always recommend using columns just in general from like a aesthetic perspective. I think it's a lot easier for your reader, your evaluator to read your content versus if you're spanning the full width of a page. So anyway, okay. I'm going to keep going. So integrated PDF comments. So a lot of times on a proposal, you need to distribute a draft to your other teammates, and they're going to have comments back for you. And they've marked up the PDF. And one way to do this is you can kind of go back and forth between your InDesign layout, looking at the PDF and kind of picking up your comments that way. But it can be cumbersome to go back and forth and keep track of everything. So one thing you can do is actually bring those comments into InDesign. And the way you do that is, so you've created a PDF, you've given it to someone, they've marked it up digitally, given it back to you, go up to Window, Comments, PDF Comments, and then you import the PDF. And it's going to bring those comments into your actual InDesign layout. And so the little yellow thought bubble or speech bubble indicates where there is a comment, and then there's going to be a panel displaying what each comment is. So it's just a nice way to have them in line to your document. And then as you work through them, you can resolve them and then check that off, and it'll give a little green check mark. So just a little nice, easy, efficient way to manage your red lines that you're getting from your teammates. So you can toggle these on and off. Sometimes when you're making the edits, those comment bubbles are very large and sometimes they're blocking things. So you can toggle those on and off with the little eye symbol. You can also sort them. So say you have a PDF with multiple comments, or sorry, from multiple people, you can sort by the person's name to see if you just want a specific person, or sort by completed versus resolved. But that's just another option there.
So this works really well if you're only working on one screen, right? And you know, like normally, I've never heard of this function. So normally I would have two screens where I have my InDesign file on one side and my PDF on the other. And if I'm working remotely, not, you know, at my home setup, it's really difficult. So this is awesome.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Yeah, if you're at home working on two monitors, you're used to, you know, having it off to the side, but you might not always have that functionality available. So yeah, this is another option. It's really a great feature. I don't use it as much as I should, because right, I can just push it over to the side, but it does exist. So it's just kind of good to know about.
Okay, Megan, we got questions. Do you know if this works with Bluebeam PDF, if someone marks it up in Bluebeam?
I would say no.
It does.
It does?
It does. So the issue is that it does work, but in Bluebeam, they're allowed to put comments in like the window or like the workspace outside of the document. And so those comments you can't really see when you bring them in. But when Bluebeam exports it to a PDF and then you bring it in from a PDF, it still brings in all of those same comments. It's harder to find the ones that are off to the sides. And so you have to like kind of manipulate it and drag it over. But yes, you can bring it in from a Bluebeam document.
Okay, that's cool. And then maybe that's good instruction to give your reviewer, say, hey, can you make sure to keep your comments within the margins of the page? Otherwise, I can't see them. Cool. Well, that's
okay. Megan, can you show the path again in order to enable that?
yeah. So it's Window, Comments, PDF Comments, and then it'll open up this smaller dialog box where if you click on Import PDF Comments, you can upload that PDF.
Okay. And then if your file changes in between or before you import those PDFs, will it still put them in the same spot that it originally was on? Or do you know, Megan? Like if you made edits and things change?
I know you can run into problems when utilizing the online review sessions that, yeah, it needs to be one-to-one. I don't know. I think it might be problematic. So yeah, you want to kind of lock out of your file. Although, I don't know. I think if the content is no longer there entirely, it might be a problem, but it seems like it should be smart enough to bring some of it in.
It's not that smart. It will sometimes leave a comment on the page. I use this a lot. It will sometimes leave the comment on the page in a weird location and you're like, what is this talking about? But it also will sometimes just make like, let's say your document is like page, you know, 10 pages. It will all of a sudden add like a page at the end. It's not necessarily page 11, but it's like page unknown. And it will then list out all the comments that don't attach properly to where, you know, they were originally created.
Okay, that's good to know. So at least it doesn't know where to put them. So it just kind of aggregates them at the back and
yeah,
at least it's flagging it for you. Okay, so that's good to know. Something to keep in mind if you're going to distribute drafts this way is you want to be pencils down ideally on both sides or on your side, at least, on all sides. And so, or they're pencils up, they're making comments. So yeah, that way it's a one-to-one comparison. but cool, good to know. All right. Next, placing multi-page PDFs. A lot of times you have to bring forms into your layout. And if it's not the very first page, or there's multiple pages, or they're in the middle of the PDF and you need to get to them, dragging in your PDF won't accomplish this. So the way to do this is you want to do a formal place. So again, you can't drag in with this. So Control or Command D, and then select your file, and then just make sure Show Import Options is selected before you open. And that'll open up a dialog box where you can indicate which page or pages you want to drop into your document. You can either even scroll through, it gives you a nice preview. So you can, if you know what it looks like, you can find it, or you can enter in a range if you know. Click OK, and it's going to load your cursor with that handful of pages to drop into your document. One thing to note that Angie flagged for me yesterday when we were running through this is you also want to make sure you have enough pages, blank pages in your document to accommodate those incoming forms. Otherwise, you're putting them off to the side, or you don't know what to do with them on top of each other. So just make sure you have the space to accommodate those. All right. QR code generator. So I admit, I used to be a QR code hater, but that was, you know, back in the day, you had to have a special app. So I just wasn't really using them. But I think, you know, as we've seen, since the pandemic, the use and adoption and popularity of QR codes has really increased for a variety of different reasons, both in the consumer space and in the B2B space. It used to be really kind of confined to consumer, but definitely see that crossover into B2B, especially as we're all working in these virtual settings. Right. So right now, this is a QR code to our demo reel. And if I want to point you all, hey, check out our demo reel. It's much easier for me to put up a QR code than it is if I put a URL up on the screen. You're going to have to go manually type it. You can't click it, right? Because we're virtual. So there's just a lot of great usage around QR codes because we know everyone has their phone right by their side at any given moment. So the way to create QR codes inside of InDesign, go up to Object, generate QR code, and it's going to open up a window where you can kind of define the characteristics of what content you want to point them to. I've only used it for web hyperlinks and email, but it looks like there's some other interesting options here, like business card. I'm not sure what that looks like, but something to explore. Just, you know, what action will happen when someone scans it. And then what color you want. So here I created a white QR code and put this on the back. This is our standard back page of proposals or, I don't know, capability statements. So yeah, QR codes. Quickly just wanted to go through a couple of design resources that are helpful. So we talked about Adobe fonts syncing with Adobe, or this is where you'll come to activate and deactivate any given fonts. This is also great for just doing research on fonts. I know as marketers, we've probably all been tapped to create a random logo for something in our company. So this is a nice place to come if you want to see what that specific text for your logo might look like. So you can type it in and it'll preview it in all different fonts. And then you can kind of filter down depending on the style of font that you're looking for, but some cool options for fonts there. Also has, under the same site, Adobe Stock. I was initially buying credits and purchasing assets. Then I learned about the free side of it. It has thousands and thousands of free assets. I utilize a lot of these, you know, vector infographic templates, kind of gets you started for different graphics that you want to create, icons, stock photos. So just a lot of great free assets that come with your Adobe CC subscription. So you might as well take advantage of them. If for some reason you don't have a subscription, these are some free stock site resources that you can utilize as well. All right.
Okay, a couple more questions, Megan.
Yes.
We'll go to Kimmy's first. Does the QR code generator allow you to put a graphic in the middle? Do you know?
I don't. I think, again, I don't know, but I think modifying the QR code changes how it reads the information. So I imagine that would It might not work. I don't know though.
Yeah, I know other ones do that.
Okay.
I use, I think it's, and I can send it to you, Kimmy. I think it's QR code. I don't remember. You'll see it when I go back to my PowerPoint. I have a image in the middle of mine. But yeah, I don't know if
So maybe Adobe doesn't currently
yeah, they might not.
support that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bit of customization that you can do. And then, do you know, Megan, if you mark up a PDF and you're making comments, if the handwritten comments will come over on the import?
Probably not. It's reading digital information. So are you saying like you printed it, someone wrote on it and you scanned it?
No, so Carmine's marking it up in Adobe, but if like you're drawing or making edits, like with a tool or pen.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I haven't imported comments that way.
Okay.
But I think if you're utilizing Adobe's comment tools, whether it be a comment, sticky note, or drawing, I think it should read that information. And how it displays, I don't know. But yeah, apologies.
Another test for everyone to try.
Right. Lots of homework. And things for me to research if I ever do this presentation again. Yeah.
Okay. Have you used the Adobe Share feature or Acrobat Share? I've used Acrobat Share.
I have
Like
not.
the share feature. Do I have Adobe open? Let me open it.
Yeah.
So that's how we do reviews, Andrea, is through the Adobe Share feature.
I've been trying to switch my team over. So a lot of people don't even know that it exists. And then a lot of people use another program, which is kind of a headache. And so I've been trying to get my team to switch over to using the Adobe Share. But one of the biggest complaints that I've been given is that it doesn't have all of the same functions that regular Adobe Acrobat has. Like you can't just, cross off text and insert, or just like the regular editing tools, you're limited to those 4 options once you turn it into a share file. And like I've done some Google searches and it looks like you should be able to add in the other functions, but I haven't been able to actually figure out how to do it myself. And so that's kind of what I'm most looking for. Like if anybody has used it, if they figured it out, because that's the big holdup I'm getting from my technical staff, is not having all of those features.
And I'm assuming, Andrea, they don't have Acrobat.
Correct. So most of them are going in as a guest, but even if you go in under your own account, like, and you sign in, it still doesn't offer you the options. Like even like the share feature, like if it's sent to me and I obviously have a Creative Cloud account, I'm still not given those same options.
Can you, well, let's test it, Andrea, because I've never been on the share side or the other side like you. So we're like, oh, what's the problem? We have that access. But I know recently we had a review I did, and there was an option for them to open it in Raven. If you want to come off mute, you can, but there was a way that said that they could open it up in Acrobat DC, but it had to, instead of being online, they had to like use the program, and I don't know.
But then that kind of defeats the purpose, because then it's not on a cloud where everybody could be
it was
commenting at the same time. It
They
was still
said
syncing.
It was still syncing. Raven, do you know? Since you use it all the time?
Well, not necessarily with the syncing, but just kind of opening up the functionality of like those 5 tools in the shared document. So you have like your comment, your sticky tool function, then you have a highlighter function, you have an underline function, you have a strike through text function, and then you have the pencil function.
Correct.
And this is in the shared thing. So kind of what needs to happen is, like, say you want to strike through text and you want to replace it with something else. So you're going to highlight it with the strike through function. And if you look over to your right hand side of that Adobe, you're going to see where it's outlining the comments. If you double click that comment, you can then type in what you want that text to be replaced with, not just the underline function. The same would go with like the highlighter or the underline. It's not intuitive that you're supposed to go over and double click and then add your comments or your notes to it from there.
The only problem with that is that it doesn't allow the just insert here. Like, let's say someone's just trying to insert a comma or insert, you know what I'm saying? Like, or I want to add this paragraph of text, but I'm not changing anything else.
Right.
That's the feature that's really like kind of missing, because I think they've all figured out if you cross off text, you can go in the actual comment box and then, you know, rewrite that. But that insert, you know, of one item or one, you know, insert of text is what's really missing.
We'll have to test it.
My people are very picky. I'm sorry.
Sounds like it. Okay, so before the rest of you hop off, I wanted to share my screen. All right, move you all over here. All right, can you see my screen, Megan?
Yes.
That says something special, not my wish. Okay, all right, so for those of you that were on the call today, I do have something special for you. It's not on the website yet, but it is the only document that you'll need to manage your proposals, since some of you do a little bit of everything on this call. An opportunity to get a leg up on competition with a time-saving Word template that I have created. And I can't, hold on, I was going to put it in the chat. You can see, so Kelly, I'll get you the name of the QR code company. QR codes can be really finicky when you start to customize this like this. So I will put the URL in the chat for you, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'll be honest, it's frustrating. But what it includes, so it's a proposal management plan template to help you avoid those 25th hour bottlenecks. It includes a calendar, a place to put your messaging and theme statements. Also, if you are getting information about your selection committee and want to capture all of that information in one place versus in your CRM and everywhere else, it allows you to do that in addition to action items, schedules, evaluation criteria, hot buttons, style guide, key actions to win. If you could only imagine, it's the only thing that you'll ever need. So links in the chat. If you try to use the QR code, didn't work, it's there. $97. It is guaranteed to make your life easier to have everything in one place to help you make your proposal a must win. So you can save time and focus on more important aspects, like maybe your design or the content, instead of starting to gather things. So any additional questions for Megan? Let me stop sharing, either for Megan or myself. We are at a little bit past the top of the hour. Thank you, Raven, for your help. Thank you, Brittany. Yeah, anybody else? Otherwise, we will call it a day.
Thanks to everyone who jumped in and filled in some gaps. Appreciate it.
Yeah, there is a lot to keep your head around with Adobe in general and InDesign. Okay. All right. I think that's it, Megan.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your week. And Kimmy, I will reach out to you with that QR code generator tool that I've been using. Okay. And if anybody else has questions, we'll follow up with messages on LinkedIn. So if anything else, or reply to the emails that you'll get as well. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Megan. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.